right, y'all. Hold on. Because we're going to get back into it, honey. Who's crying, baby? Mm, mm, mm.
Looks quite familiar as it did when I lived there. Marshall School was still the same also. And there was more than 75% color when I went there. You know, we got along great. All of us got along together very well. I recall very few colored and whites fighting. We were friends. When there was any arguments or fights, as there usually is, as you call it, the ghetto, we seemed to stick together. The colored stuck up for the white, and the white stuck up for the colored.
Well, what is your point? No, you feel that
I arose from this neighborhood. I lived in the slums. I'm not ashamed of it. You know, nobody helped me get where I'm at. I scrub floors. It doesn't make any difference. The friends that I graduated with have jobs and homes just as I have now. And they were colored. And they had a chance. They sat right next to me in class. The teacher listened to them just like she listened to me. And it was that same house that you showed me on that film. So then, I am as the same as these boys here. Because I seen little white kids as well as colored kids together digging out of garbage cans. Not separately. Together, we walked Madison Street. We tripped over probably the same drunks in front of Rothschilds that are still there now. So what about me? Am I a poor white person? God help me, give me mercy. I want white power then. What about Broadway? What about Broadway? What about
you want to address myself too?
White people are.
What about
we have a problem too.
And I think you should have white power. See, talking to you is an exercise if you took it. Let me get this straight. I'm not talking about white people. When you solve their problems, you use force and violence, whatever it is to solve it. No, I don't blame it. And if I wanted to defend you, I wouldn't want to give it up.
Do we come and march and you say, look at our poor people, look at our hungry people?
No, you don't have to come because we can't solve your problem. You have to solve your own, and we want to solve our own.
Violent?
Who said anything about violence? Everybody here is talking about violence.
He said he believes in violence. I want to know.
They have a right to. They're going to take him in a few years and teach him to kill with the best weapons available.
They taught my brother to kill too.
Okay, so let's ask the United States government about violence. They live on it. They thrive on it. They're in the next place. This is the most violent society in the world that you run, baby.
Why is
you hung black men up by their heads and cut their bodies to pieces. You burn women to death. Yes, I got the pictures on my wall. I was tied to a tree by the plant and had a knife run through my body.
You never seen white people kill them.
White people, I'm not worried about that.
Avenue and Cassie and I watched them die in front of me.
That's tough.
As a kid.
That's tough. That's tough. But we're talking about black power, black society, voice for white society. You hear it, Tommy. Go home if you don't want to hear, baby. Go home. We don't need you.
You don't want to hear.
I'll let the lady speak because Mr. Big is a little loud in his voice. I think this is a very interesting point. And I'm, it's an amazing coincidence that you did live in that immediate area because we had no idea that was going to be the.
Exactly. That street, that block. No, I don't.
And you're
that looked just like that when I did though.
Sure.
And Beidler School. Do you know Beidler School there, Mr. B? Do you know the old school?
Yeah.
The old one with the wooden floors. I walked on it. There's a new school. Isn't there? I didn't get no new schools, but I'm not complaining.
You're the CMH. What's the poor white person? What was big?
You're the one that's crying the loudest.
I'm crying, baby. I'm not crying.
I'm crying.
You know the difference.
Are you crying, baby? Who's crying, baby?
But you're blaming us. We got a right to stand up and defend ourselves.
Defend yourself. I dare you to respect.
There you go. What I lied. You got the pictures. I had a vivid view.
I'd like to let you say this very second.
Are we wrong because we're white?
With the perfect pick for steak and shrimp bucatine, Olive Garden.
That's food, baby.
Yeah.
Well, then maybe the other foot now.
Well, you're dancing to like a women, so must be a little confused. What do you mean? All right, we're
will in a second, but I just want to clarify this. Your point simply is this, ma'am. You believe that you live in the neighborhood where Mr. Meek does. They're 75% Negro then, and you say that the friends that you went to school with, as well as yourself, worked their way out of the ghetto.
That's right.
And you believe that anybody can do it as they want to?
That's right.
Let's bring this gentleman back here. Here's a man. Let's,
Miss Williams, I think white people have to talk to white people and tell them why they're wrong.
here's what
I think white people have to tell some ignorant white people that they shouldn't start listening to Russell Meek and Gene Williams and Dick Gregory and Bob Lucas. And I'd like to ask this woman if she honestly believes there is a segregation in Chicago, and if she's been to the schools. I teach in the West Side. My name's Richard Kelly. I teach in upper grade center in the West Side. And I next year conditions are worse than last year. I have 39 in the class where I had 35. We have a white principal, white assistant principal. The Negroes that teach our school are afraid to open their mouth because they're afraid that they're going to lose their job, their time. There's a lot of segregation, not only in the house. You can go in the different neighborhoods. Ma'am, I don't see how you can sit here and dare to talk to Russ Meek and say there is a segregation in Chicago.
the whole thing comes down by yourself.
Elmer Lazar, Chicago, Illinois. The whole
Are
thing.
you with an association?
No, yes, individual.
Go ahead.
The whole thing here comes down to education, gradual lack of education. Now, to prove this to you, I was an employment manager of a firm that employed dozens of Negroes 5, 10, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. And we were looking for a truck driver several times, not just once, dozens of times. We used to interview colored fellows that come in, you know, from 18 to 30, any age. And doing these colored fellows that came in to apply for the job, only 3 or 4 could talk, could read and write English. 3 or 4. Now, these were newly come Southerners from the South. They're from the South, you know, see. And only out of the 25 fellows that we interviewed, only 3 or 4 could read and write. Back in 1950, 1952, 53, 54, 55.
So your point is,
What can you do with people that they sent from the South that can't read and write? What can you do with people that have no education? Now, well, we have to educate them. The South should not be allowed to send these colored people up here. They should educate them. They should educate them.
how about this gentleman in the front row? Would you identify yourself, sir?
I'm Reverend Emmett G. Davis, the Executive Director of the North Suburban Organization for Fair Housing. There are a couple of points that I want to speak to, particularly to get back to originally the way we started out.
Yes.
We're caught now in this trap between whether we're going to follow Dr. Martin Luther King with a nonviolent approach or whether we're going to follow my friend Russ Meeks here with a violent approach. We're at a loss to know what to do. We tried Dr. King. We're afraid to try Meeks.
Are you afraid to try him? You're afraid to try me?
Some of the people on the North Shore are afraid. They've gotten a little sophistication because they've been able to move to
Are
the
these
North Shore.
Negroes you're talking about?
Negroes, yes.
Middle class Negroes.
They've been calling the police department in Evanston, hoping there's not going to be a riot in Evanston. They are afraid too. Now, how do you reach these kind of people?
Well, you feel the
Mr. Speaker, tell us this.
The middle class Negroes.
The middle class Negroes who have become complacent, who fear the revolutionary lower to lower economic class Negroes.
Well, Mr. Meek, you want to respond to that?
Yeah, I'd like to respond because I think that you sound like a reverend. Thank goodness there's some people like you left. I might even come to your church one day and see what you have to say. Man, what a breath of fresh air. I want to say this because, see, first of all, there's a mistaken notion. The Watts study, which they just brought out, proved that the middle class black man is much more violent than so-called lower strata.
Well, that differs from what you're saying.
Well, see, when you talk about people in North Shore, see, here's the point. Which, I'm talking to black folk now, you know. That no matter what happens, the dialectics of the situation are going to make you either get off the fence or fall in a hole in the ground. It is the ability to take your own resources and develop a culture, a society, a community of our own, the way we want it, free from white interference, and we can get the same privilege. We're not interested in interracial housing. We don't want your neighborhood. We want ours to be just as good. See, we don't want to store in your neighborhood. We don't want you coming in our neighborhood and open up stores and exploiting us, and then go home and start buying next door out in the suburbs. We don't want your schools, but we want our schools to be the highest and the best possible for our black project. See, which people don't understand. We are saying, and we're not asking. See, the die is cast, as I said, we're not asking. We're saying this is the way it's going to be.
Mr. Meek, why do you feel, an example, just to zero in on this, why do you personally feel that Martin Luther King's way is not the way to work?
Well, it's very simple to me because it hasn't worked.
He's talking about new techniques, tying up the city.
You don't tie up no city. You don't tie up the city. There's no such thing as massive civil disobedience. There's two things. You either have a revolution, because the moment he tries that, the police force with the live bullets from every day talk about going to open up on him, and what's he going to do about black folks laying out in the street with blood running out of their bodies? Then he's going to lose control. Then he's going to run and call the president and say, send the troops in.
Let me ask you a question. What if every Negro employee of the CTA picked one day in September to get sick? Wouldn't that time the
No, they'd get tired and put white folks in their place.
I'm the Catholic Interracial Council. I'm also a Democrat, and about 1,000 years ago, there was a Greek philosopher who said that those who do injustice are more harmed than those who receive injustice. And anybody who marched into those white neighborhoods last fall would know from the looks of the hatred and the fear on the white people's faces that they have been more harmed by the way they have treated the Negro race than the Negroes, as badly as they have been harmed, have been treated. And I think that the white race in this country needs this revolution even more than the Negro race needs it.
We'll go ahead, ma'am. Yes.
This is Elmer Lazar, and my husband and I are 100% for the Negro. I want to state that. In fact, when people say, would you like to have a Negro live next door to you? I said he has a perfect right to.
You have a Negro next door to you.
No, not yet, but I mean, I would really not mind it. However, and I am for the Negro, I want to see him get ahead. But now, in regard to what this gentleman said, where is this Negro going to purchase his needs? Get his all right, fine. And I want to address another remark to Mr. Reed. Many of my friends have been for the Negro, but ever since this violence started, they have turned against him. How do you go about not alienating the white man who has been for you?
You don't care. You don't care. You can go on your gas, he has murdered, burned, raped, castrated, and tortured. I give less than a hoot matter what any white person thinks about this black man.
Well, but don't you want us to be with
I don't want you to do anything but leave us alone. We don't need you.
But I mean, more support. I don't mean to do anything for you, but
What do you know they do with the white people? They need the more morality.
Didn't know I needed a built-in seat to watch my kids' game, but now I do. In the Lucid Grand.
Let the girls fight. Let the boys fight.
stood up for the Negro, and now they say, well, now when they resort to violence, we have
to violence.
Well, I mean, in some of these riot areas.
Well, riot areas. You're talking about we resort to violence. I talked to a reporter for Newsweek who told of National Guardsmen shooting down people in the back. Understand? As they walk down the street minding their business, shooting down the machine guns.
Yes,
Wait, but listen, you said about violence. I get sick in my stomach when I hear a white person talk about violence. You're the most violent people in the world. You're born on it. You live on it. You're sick with it. You're saturated with it. We have been the most peaceable, law-abiding fools the world has ever seen.
Okay, that's our media communication has misinterpreted that.
Of course it is. We don't want you to love us. We don't love you.
Then we are not being represented. You are not being represented properly through the press.
The heck with the press.
Right here and now, the track.
Nobody loves the rap state. Believe me. But they won't report it truthfully.
Well, perhaps that's it.
They won't show it all the black folks shot above the shoulders.
Well, Mr. Hank, here is a lady who is obviously a liberal and wants to help you.
I never listened to them.
You call yourself liberal?
Yes, I do. Yes.
This is a dilemma.
I mean,
that a lot
I'm
of
the
people
kind
have.
feeling toward all people, the Negroes, everybody.
But the
I
lady,
mean, there's nothing I can do. There's no white liberals. They're only playing.
We want some white John Brown. All the white John Brown.
Pain and disgust.
We don't care.
We don't care.
When our babies die, as Mr. Luther just talked about, black babies starving to death, and you talk about looking at us with disdain and disgust while you barbarian murderers? How can you even talk with it?
This is not all right.
Well, that's your problem. I'm not going to go down with a meter asking you what kind of white person you are.
There is one person in this room that is an American, not one person. We all have ancestors from all over the world. We have come here. This is the greatest country in the world. It is for every single person that's in it. Every college student. You think you've been mistreated? Look how the Indians were mistreated that were here in the beginning. We're all part of each other. And as we become true Americans, attention. The problem here is not who loves who and who hates who. That is irrelevant, lady. With all due respect to you, if your daughter wanted to marry a gorilla, that's her business.
And who may marry a white man in the next few months?
No, I'm
going to fall off.
No, I've been integrated. I've been integrated all I need to be integrated. I've got these freckles and these red hair as a result of the rape that took place on my great grandmother in Mississippi. I don't want any more integration. I don't need. The next man I have to be black, so I can bring some black people in the world.
And they will bring not black children,
a white man to rape
American. He's not going to be he's going to marry you. You are going to be his honored wife. This is America.
I'm surprised with white America today.
We are on your mind. We are
You have talked since you got on this program about love, water, marriage, other men, sex is not the problem. Economics.
They came from ladies.
Time, Rose, please. Just finish it up. What would you like to say?
The Salvation Army has met folks of every immigrant, every country of the world. They have given them money to start out here in this country to help themselves become better, because this is a free country.
All right, fine. Now, what would you say to that? You want to respond?
I just want to respond and say this, that integration isn't the problem. The problem is how the Negro can become a man. So long, the black man has been emasculated. Now he wants to become a man, just as you. The black woman wants to be a woman on her own 2 feet, not because she's sexually attracted to a white man. Now, what Core has said, and what I want, and I think what all black people want, is to have the equality that the Constitution says all men.
I recommend Optimum Fiber, starting at only $25 a month. It's famously fast, like me. Here's to the go-getters. And not just the ones in the gym.
Gentleman in the background.
My name is Russell Davis. I'm a student of political science. This afternoon, Mr. Meeks has said that he's not afraid of alienating white America. A young lady from Winnetka has stated that she saw during the marches which she participated in people who were full of fear and hatred. Mr. Lucas has said that the American Negro is either going to be free or he's going to be dead. My question is this. If the violence continues, back to you, Mr. Meeks, and you, Mr. Lucas, I'm afraid it's going to be the second Mr. Meeks.
You know, it's very hard to say what you want to say. Somebody gets some answer they haven't been talking. But you know what, young white fellow? I got a son in the 101st Airborne that you're going to kill, probably, because he's going to Vietnam. I got a nephew just came back from Korea that was wounded 3 times. The first thing happened, he went home, a cop beat the hell out of him with a pistol butt. Now, you get this straight. You can kill all the black folks you want to, baby, but you will not kill
Baby.
It's coming. It's going to get you. You think you're so indestructible. You think you're so great because you got all these weapons. I remember Mao Zedong once said he wondered where he'd get his weapons from, and then we armed China.
Come on, baby. You wanna kill me, baby?
So don't misunderstand us, baby. We're dead serious. This country was founded on revolution. Those little settlers out there in the northeast section of this country had some muskets and some sticks and some stones. And they whipped the professional British Army, baby. And 5,000 of them were black and 1 black was a man and fought you all. We fought in every one of your damn lives, baby, and you give us nothing. Now the war is going to be here, because we're going to be free. Now you kill all you want to, but we kill too. Now we don't fight. We don't fight at all.
Is she already back here?
This is why the civil rights movement wasn't simple. It wasn't peaceful saints versus angry radicals. It was people trying to survive the same fire, arguing about the least deadly way out. So I'm not asking who was right. I'm asking something harder. When violence is already part of daily life, is nonviolent strength or sacrifice? Let's start a conversation. Leave your point of view in the comments.
Who do you want to call, baby? Who do you want to call, baby?
So let me go ahead and go to the third thing that pissed me off. So on Monday, I came home. I play golf. I play golf on Monday, I think. So I came home. My wife was watching this docu-series on the History Channel, and it was called The Frontiersmen, Men Who Built America. So they have a series of these documentaries. The Men Who Built America. They have The Food That Built America. This is a whole series. And so when I saw this, I saw that one of the executive producers was Leonardo DiCaprio. And so I sit down and I happened to walk in as they were talking about how Davy Crockett and Andrew Jackson were at odds and how Davy Crockett lost his bid for Congress. And then they were talking about how there was a play on Davy Crockett and how Davy Crockett then moved to Texas and he was walking into a war raging in Texas. Roll this.
As Crockett begins to settle in, he realizes Texas is on the verge of rebellion. After years of loose governance, Mexican President Santa Anna suddenly imposes new restrictions on settlers. Now, angry Texans.
Shop The New Arrivals by Ashley Lux, where practical prices meet premium style, like plush boucle upholstery.
On settlers. Now, angry Texans.
Santa Anna, he imposes new restrictions on settlers. Now, if you're watching, you will go, I'm curious. What are those new restrictions? They never say. Press play.
Are calling for revolution.
Texas was on the verge of independence, that the Texians...
He says, Texas were on the verge of independence. Okay, go ahead, roll it.
As they were called, were going to try to become independent, and there would be possibilities of land and political opportunity.
In response, Santa Anna sends 500 troops to confiscate weapons and quell unrest. When Texans refuse to give in, he makes plans to retaliate.
Santa Anna is training an army in San Luis Potosí to march against Texas. Santa Anna did not think that this was a local insurgency. He was absolutely convinced the United States was involved. And so that's why the Mexican government was so determined to put down this revolt.
Crockett arrives in Texas at the same time as news of Santa Anna's counterattack.
When Crockett had gone to Texas was really just meant to be an extended hunting expedition and land scout, and he bumbles right into a war for independence.
He stumbles into a war for independence, and I'm just sitting here going, what are they trying to be independent about? Press play.
A number of things happened along the way. One was the appearance of Halley's Comet, and when Halley's Comet appeared in the sky in 1836, some people thought that it meant that David Crockett was coming to Texas to fight for independence.
Here we go again with that independence. And so the docu-series kept going on. And then they went to episode 4. And then I'm watching it. They talk about the Alamo. And they talk about independence. And they go to the Battle of San Jacinto. They talk about what happened there. Roll it.
Suffer just 11 casualties. The crushing defeat leads to Mexico's surrender. And Texas finally wins independence.
Here we go right there. Texas finally wins independence. What in the hell is Texas trying to be independent for? answer. Roll it.
Back in Washington, D.C., Jackson welcomes the news. He's dreamed of Texas joining the U.S. for years, but the future of Texas is caught in the growing debate over slavery.
Congress wasn't willing to go along with annexation because Texas would enter the Union with slavery. And oh my God! We finally hear the word slavery. Let's play. The addition of Texas would tip the balance in the Senate in favor of the pro-slavery side. The result of this was that Texas remained in this limbo for almost a decade. See, the problem is, I think I know what the problem is. See, the problem is, I am the reason them plantation owners couldn't stand reading Negroes. I think that's the real problem.
'Cause he's the Roro.
In 1963, Medgar Evers, the NAACP Secretary for Jackson, Mississippi, organizes boycotts of shops that enforce Jim Crow laws.
Let me say this to you. I had one merchant to call me, and he said, we don't need nigger business. So let us not trade at these stores. Let's let the merchants down on Capitol Street feel the economic pinch.
NBC News cameras carry Evers' impassioned speech nationwide. 3 weeks later, a gunman shoots him in the back. As a World War II veteran, Evers is buried with full military honors at Arlington National Cemetery. His funeral airs on national television. Over 3,000 mourners come to pay their respects. His brother Charles, a fellow activist, comforts his distraught widow Merle and their 2 young children, Carol and Rena. Evers' murder only deepens the movement's resolve to defeat racism through non-violent means. At his memorial service held in Jackson, a 5,000-strong march is led by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
The brutal murder of Medgar Evers came as shocking, tragic news to all people of Goodwill. I think this reveals that we still have a long, long way to go in this nation before we achieve the ideals of decency, the ideals of brotherhood.
It will be another 30 years before Evers' killer is finally brought to justice. Former U.S. Marine and white supremacist Byron Della Beckwith is arrested just days after Evers' funeral, smiling for the camera. He's twice tried by an all-white jury. Both trials end in a hung jury. It's not until 1994 that he's eventually found guilty.
Now what the fuck is the problem? Anyway, y'all, so it is a shame and a scandal the way they try to make you holler. Hey Siri, where you at? I'm right here, baby. Child, there's a lot going on, honey. So my question is, what do y'all think about the shenanigans? Okay? What do y'all think about it, baby? Huh, baby? It's real interesting in these streets. Right, baby? How the party people greet.
They don't want you to know about it. Hey, did you know you might get a big cash pay?
His image publicly may not be what the facts may show in the court of law.
We promise you we're going to straighten all this stuff out. That's all I can say right now. I promise you.
For years, speculation swirled. Whispers in the shadows. Rumors that refuse to fade.
Robert's problem, and this is a thing that goes back many years, is young girls. This was not a secret in November 2000. There were whispers throughout the music community throughout Chicago.
So we're going to focus on the evidence. We're going to fight this case like we fight any other case in the courtroom based on the evidence.
I know what I'm starting to think, that there's a food chain. I think that's the best way I can put it. To you only get so high before you get knocked down. Okay? That's the best way I'm gonna put it. You only get so high before you get knocked down. I just think that some of these people need to really evaluate what life is. What do y'all think about the shade and the shenanigans of it all? What do you love, baby? Is this a lot going on? Hold on, y'all. It's been a real fact, baby, that this is how you act, baby. Okay? And that ain't a fact, Jack. That they knows where it's at. Okay? So, baby.
Like, you want to know what the hell it's like living on the stinking west side of Chicago? Well, me and my little black brother are going to show you, Whitey. Watch this.
Whitey.
I'm Dave Dugan, and we've invited a cross-section of concerned citizens to a meeting in Chicago. Our question is this: will anything move the white man and mobilize the black man to end the domestic war and bring about a constructive peace? The place we've chosen to ask that question is Chicago.
Back there in 1955, what was Mississippi like?
Well, like I said, Mississippi was always a crazy place, always, you know. But like I said, man, I just get to tell you, that's just to get one thing. If
you was all right with them white folks. Long as you sharecrop with them and everything, but you start messing around, like I say, still messing with the women's and the cotton, then you got a problem. And other than that, they would do anything for you. But to do two things they just didn't like. But like I say, and one thing about that, about the South at that time, white folks down south never did thought black people would get grown. They didn't thought they would get grown. They would always say, if you like my grandfather, it was like us up in his 60s, and they was always uncle. They would always be aunt. They would never say, that's what they would always call and granddad always called that. So that's how it was in 1955.
There were a bunch of things that you couldn't, that white people didn't like you to do. They didn't like you, like you said, mess with the women. You had to, give them the right of way on the sidewalk, right? They didn't want you to look at them in the eye. What were the things that as think back for me? You grew up there till you were 18. What was it that they didn't want you to do?
Well, like I say, they always want to be in the front. Like I say, you got plenty. You got one place there that was a what they call flat. That was where all black people went over there. That was like the little bars and things, or the little bars and stuff like that. But like on the main street, you would have to give them that, way. It all depends on what white man that you was working for. Now, if you was working for at that time for what you call a powerful white man, then that black man, he can go anywhere he wants because that white man got more powerful, and some of them then like I say, you got to like Dewey Ross and all them guys. Now you wouldn't dare to mess with one of they you waiting for them. You would not mess with them because they know Dewey Ross was a bad man, and you did not mess with his black people on this plantation. See, and I know the time that they turned around and they had a couple one guy that got to one time kill one black guy. But when it comes out for him to go to trial, what they told him? He said, no, okay. He said, well, one thing, he said, when the trial comes, I'm gonna bring him there. You let him play, flying this field, and okay, when the trial come, he took him on and take him right on up there, tried and then brought him right on back. So that was the difference if you was like, if you was on one of their white men was smart, wasn't that was sort of low, then you they would do anything to you. They had a few white men was down there. I know one man had one kid, and he like I said, I don't know, he turned around and there was a pool hall there, but nothing but white folks in there. That's all white could go in there. But this kid could go in there with him. See? And I saw that happen. So that's my thing.
So if you work for a powerful white man, then as a black person you got power.
Yeah, you got power. Cause he will let you down. They will let you know. And it didn't matter. Like they know themselves who to mess with and who not to mess with. And if you living on one of those white man power places, and you just want a white man system, you just I live on this place. Listen, you ain't got no problem. You didn't have no problem at that time.
So they had their own culture, their own way of doing things.
They had their own way of doing things.
What would happen if you broke the rules, if you messed with a white woman, or you said something to a white woman?
Well, the same thing would happen to the same thing would happen to at that time. The same thing would happen to him and would happen to you. It did the same thing.
I want to talk about this before so don't tell me about Emmett.
Okay,
because I don't want, we haven't talked about Emmett yet. Okay. So start it out. If you said something to a white woman, what would happen?
If you said something to a white woman, you'd be lynched. You would be. Because, like I say, now, like we still saying, it's still the people, it's all the people who know you're working for. Now, I was working for man, had old Miller's there. Now, he had his old 10-cent store there. But I was the only one I could wait at his house. I could wait there, cut his lawn, everything. And then when I got ready to go, home, I lived about 2 or 3 miles from there. His wife would put me in the back of the car and take me on there. Take me right on home.
Okay, let's cut. Cat's freaking me. How he was lynched? Was lynching a real threat back then? Was it something else?
No, I never did because at the time, like you say, most of the people down there, especially black people down there, black men, they knew the rules. See, so they didn't have that. They knew that rule. So that's why you didn't have it happen. Because you knew what to do. They knew what to do.
Talk about, one thing. Could you vote down there? What would happen if you wouldn't try to vote?
No, you couldn't vote. No, you couldn't vote there. No. You couldn't vote there. We wouldn't allow you to vote there. No way.
What would happen if you did? Change this for me? Oh, sorry. Okay. What would happen if you tried to vote?
Well, at that time, what would happen to you if you tried to vote? It would be the same thing with happened in Montgomery, Alabama. It would be the same thing. You just couldn't vote.
I mean, would they say, no, you can't vote? Or they would
say, no, they'll tell you, no, you can't vote. And then you ain't going to be there full time to vote.
Willie, tell me the story of what happened at that was it the morning when Emma was killed? What happened?
No, that was the morning.
Where were you? What happened?
No, well, I don't know why my grandfather had choose me on that 4th Sunday of August to that I have to go to the store that morning, and that he wanted me to go to Bo Bishop's store. It was a little store there. Maybe about a mile from there, that I have to go over there and get something for he go there what he wanted. And okay, when I left home and I was on my way. And when I get there, just about when I'm from the come on go on a little old hill on there, that's a mile on place was. And as I turned out, I looked and I saw two tight. I saw Hubbard and I saw Emmett Till on the back of this truck. Then I saw Brown, I saw Mount. So, and before I get there, I could hear all this beating, and I could hear this beating, and I could hear this crying and beating. And I'm saying to myself, they beating somebody up there. Now, I got to pass there, but when I got to pass there, I passed there, then I'm going up to Miss Manning's house. And I tell Miss Manning, I said, Miss Manning, you know anything? I said, I don't know who. I said, but they beating somebody, because they beating somebody. She said, well, let's go back up there. I said, okay. So, okay, we came back up. And at that time, there was a well there. I turned the well on and get some water. At that time, when I got back, I didn't hear nothing. No beating, no nothing. Didn't hear anything. And the only thing I saw then was Myla came out, and I was down getting me some water. Miss Myla, she was standing that way. So then I'm drinking me some water. So he said, did you hear anything? And at that time I looked, I saw him, he had a khaki pants on, had a green island shirt, and a 45 on his side. So I said, no, I ain't heard anything. I said, anything. And at that time, me and Miss Bradley went on to the house. So then I got to go to the store. So I went on the store, and I came back and I told my grandfather, I said, you know, Granddad, I said, I don't know who it was. I said, but you know, them people, I said, mine, them was about beating somebody. I said, I don't know what happened. So we don't even know what happened. So, but like I said, I know he was driving this like this green 1955 pickup. I knew what happened. So I came back, and about 2 or 3 days later, maybe after that, then we knew who it was, because that's when they had killed him. And so they had found the body. So, and I was in the cotton field, and I was picking cotton. Having to look at my grandfather told me, now, hey, you better be quiet about this, be quiet. And I said, yeah. And at that time, I had to look about the found out. I don't know how they found that, somebody, how they found that I knew something about it. And I looked across the field, there was about 7 or 8 people coming across the field toward me. It was white and black coming that way. And then that's when they told me that that was Emmett Till that they had killed, that they found the body. And then they began to question me about this here. Did you see anything? So I told them what I saw. And that's all I could do is tell them what I saw. And so after this, my grandfather said to me, well, I don't know what we said. So then, like I said, it was Clint Shirley, and we lit it on, we shipped crowd with him. So they had found out that I knew about this. So then, Clint come down there, Clint Shirley come down and told my grandpa, I'll tell you one thing, said, don't let him stay here tonight. So what you do, you take him somewhere. That my grandfather woke me up. Now we got to go up to his sister's house back there on Blackwood Plantation. Must have been about 2.5 miles from there. So we come, my grandpa said, no, we're not going to walk on the road. We're going through these cotton fields, on these cornfields. That's just where we went. So then I got there, so he told me, you go on and go sleep. I go, got down and go to sleep. Now, Clint Stewart, they knew the thing where I was. So what they did is send the high sheriff from Drew to pick me up, and my grandpa said, no, I'm going with him. So that's when we went to the monies for this trial. And after that now, we saw they got mixed plays. They had never really, they were getting ready for that trial then. Now, I had to find out, I got to get to Mount Bow, and that's where Dr. Howard was. I got to get there. So I couldn't get nobody, but I got one fellow, and his name was Earl Jr., which he wasn't scared of no white man, no black man, period. So now I was telling me, he said, okay, so yeah, I'll take you on the Mount Bow. So he's driving over 1951 Chevrolet. He took me right on there. But see, trying to get into Dr. Howard's house, at this point, what his property was, he was just like you trying to get into the White House, because he had his own bodyguards out there in them little houses, had his own. And so then that's when I started staying there. I stayed there until after the trial was over. So after that, like I said, after the trial was over, now we still got big space, but then I got to get back to Mount Bow myself. I got to get back to Mount Bow myself. So finally I got back there. And after that, finally I got back. And then they got me out of there like that Friday. Yeah, that Friday. Then I had to come to Memphis. Took me to Memphis and brought me to Memphis. And it was the NAACP. I guess the name that brought me to make sure that I got to Memphis and everything. And where I stayed at. And that's where I stayed. And then I put me on a plane. I said Saturday, that Friday night. And I arrived in Chicago on that Saturday morning, which is where my mother picked me up at. And at the time, I didn't know. Now, I didn't know at the time. Time I got to Chicago, I was supposed to have been under police protection then. So we don't even know this here. So what me, my uncle and them, with my uncle and them, they come in there because they live here. So okay, we going out. So we all went out. And so at the time I was supposed to be under police, we don't know. So we turned around and we went to the west side. And so we get in like about maybe like 4 o'clock that Sunday morning. And so at the time, it was 2 detectives was sitting out in the front of the house, 2103 South Michigan. And so then they started calling me. They called him, Willie. Now my uncles and I got 3 uncles there. They don't know me. Don't nobody know me there. So my uncle and them said, well, they don't nobody know you here. Don't nobody know you here. And because they put the detective, they was black. And then my uncle got smart when he said, no, I said, my uncle said, what did I do? What he would do to me, he said, no, say you don't say that because he said, you may get this police guard. I mean, he showed us ID when he was a policeman. So he's supposed to be like police protection when he first got the guy.
Let me ask you another question. So you see this, you hear this happening and see this happening. What made you decide to testify?
Well, what made me decide to testify? Because I look at, I didn't know anything about him or nothing like that. Then I'm looking at there's a 14-year-old kid as a 14-year-old, and I'm 18. All right, so I didn't have no choice but to tell the truth. What I saw, and that's what I told him. I saw that. See, I saw what I said, and it's first month, like I said, it's just something that I have to just go and do, tell the truth. See, and then too, like I said, the thing what it was, like I said, even in Chicago now Chicago was like the South, like the North was talking about how bad is the South. The South was the worst. The North is worse than the South for being prejudiced. Now, when I was on the police guard almost about 6 weeks on the police guard. I couldn't go nowhere without the police. Then I was getting threatened phone calls from here. See, now I show you about how it is. Now I was living at 2103 South Michigan. There's a tavern right there on 22nd in Michigan. There's an all-white tavern there. That's one block. Now, then there's a Walgreens right on Wabash. That's one block. That's a Walgreens there. So one day, one Sunday I forgot I didn't get no cigarettes. I said, well, I'm going to go up here and get the Walgreens. But when I got there, Walgreens was closed. Now I'm going to walk back up to 22nd and 22nd in Michigan. It's all white. When I walked in there, they're all looking. So now, can I help you? I said, yeah. I said, you can sell me a pack of cigarettes. He said, well, what about Walgreens? So then I said, well, right now, I said, Walgreens is closed. I've been down there. He said, I'll tell you one thing. He said, I'm going to sell you a pack of cigarettes tonight. But make sure you go to Walgreens and get them next. So I'm one block from there.
Look, I just want to ask you some more questions about Mississippi. That's okay. About that day. We should be get real close. Okay, close again. Real close. Yeah. So you heard. What did you hear when you heard them?
I could hear them screaming, and I can also hear them what they was beating them with. I could hear them licks from. I could hear them and hear them screaming. See, I heard that even before I got to the barn. I passed, they still would be. I didn't hear it. But like I said, when I come back, I didn't hear no more beating. Everything was quiet. So I'm pretty sure at that time they had to kill him anyway.
I saw this reporter from back then on TV, and he said that the sound of a 14-year-old screaming could sound like the grunting of a pig. It could have been the grunting of a pig.
You could hear it. You could hear this. You could hear this sound better. You could hear it. But you could hear. You could hear him grunting. You could hear them licks. You can hear that. So
it couldn't have been the grunting of a pig. Could it have been?
No, not grunting of a pig. But I tell you, a whole lot of people. This is the thing. A whole lot of people say, well, this happened. But see, the thing with this, a whole lot of people, you can't, if you wasn't there, you can't say it. But see, I was there. I knew when I heard it, I saw this, I could hear this beat. Now, I could hear this beat. So they, people say, well, this and that, because they really don't know.
Was he crying out for his mother?
He was crying out. But he was just crying out. You got me quite naturally. You 14 and you getting whooped like that, and you don't whoop. How many was whooping him or not? Yeah, you gonna be crying out.
What was he saying?
He was just crying out. Just like this. I don't know. Yeah.
And it seems like you cut off his head. That's what I'm doing. In order to be like that, he's moving around. So what I'm trying to do is to keep room on the bottom of the frame as opposed to the top. Let me stop a second. Okay?
They need to know this history. And Sarah Collins Rudolph, I've been living in Birmingham for 69 years.
Birmingham, in terms of a industrialist or economic vision, would have been a pretty good place after World War II. But in terms of being a minority in a city like Birmingham, it was a very scary place.
One thing that I remember was how my mother had to shop for our shoes. She would have to put our feet on a piece of paper and measure our feet because downtown they wouldn't let black people try on shoes, and they wouldn't let us use the restroom. They had signs everywhere like white and color because the fountains, if they catch black using the white fountain, they would arrest us. And the black couldn't even sit down in the bottom of the theater. We had to sit in the balcony. My father's job, he would clean tables at Joy Young Cafe. And he worked there for years. He even worked on Sunday. My daddy, he was always kind of like me, on the quiet side. But my mother, she was the talker of the family. And she wanted to raise us in church. That's one thing she made sure we did. And she would teach us how to sew. She would teach us how to play the piano. She was a housekeeper. She got a job cleaning up the hill. And two nice white women that were really nice, both of them. And the only thing about it, they wouldn't let blacks in through the front door, at that time. Black had to also enter all the time in the back doors. That's the way it was. That's the way I came up, living in the city of Birmingham. After we came up like that, he just thought it was just the way we had to live like that forever.
I think that there has to be room for acknowledging what happened to this 12-year-old girl who, through no fault of her own, was thrust into history and then just as quickly ignored.
Well, before the bombing, I was just playing little happy girls, playing like little girls should. Through the years, part of the time that since that had happened to me, I was angry. We was taught to love, one another in church. But that had changed. It changed my heart.
Birmingham, Alabama, that in minority circles was referred to as Birmingham. It includes a neighborhood known as Dynamite Hill, just a neighborhood that experienced over 50 bombings in less than a 10-year period, simply because people wanted to achieve adequate housing. One of my high school teachers, Reverend Calvin Woods, he would often say Birmingham is the magic city, but in so many ways it was the tragic city. And as we get to 1963, you begin that year with Governor George Wallace being inaugurated, and he makes his infamous statement.
In the name of the greatest people that have ever trod this earth, I draw the line in the dust and toss the gauntlet before the feet of tyranny, and I say segregation now, segregation tomorrow, and segregation forever.
It starts 1963 in Birmingham, Alabama. If you come to the Birmingham Civil Rights District, you can see Kelly Ingram Park, where thousands of young people marched to defy legalized segregation. And you can walk in the footsteps that these wonderful human beings walked in, and you can get an idea of what it was like to be a part of a simply transformative time in United States history.
Today, you see that it is a place of revolution and reconciliation. And it truly was a place of revolution. Just as revolutionary as anything that took place in Bunker Hill, Lexington, or Concord. But the most important part is reconciliation, where people found a way to come together after a very tumultuous time. The movement in Birmingham, Alabama had been going on now for over a decade, but they toiled for a large part in silence. The world wasn't listening. But in 1963, in January, Dr. Martin Luther King joined the fight in Project C, Project Confrontation. And with Dr. King came the world through the lenses of media, national media, international media. As Dr. King said, sunlight is the best disinfectant. The highest point of Project C in Birmingham, Alabama would have been D-Day. Not Normandy, France, but Kelly Ingram Park. D-Day represented Demonstration Day. May 2nd, 1963 was the date that young people from all over the city had been waiting for. Disc jockeys on the radio stations had told them that there was going to be a party in the park and they needed to bring their toothbrush. That signaled to them that they weren't going home. Instead, these young people were going to jail. By this time in the movement, jail, no bail, had become a strategy. On May 2nd, 1963, Bull Connor arrested 1,000 young people and sent them to the Birmingham city jails. D-Day was an overwhelming success, but the leaders of the movement were not content to rest on their laurels. They did not want to waste this momentum, and so they pushed forward to May 3rd, which was going to be double D-Day. But as they made their plans, Bull Connor made his plans as well. So the Birmingham Fire Department employed their water hoses against these young people. The water hoses that could pull the bark off of the trees in this park. Here we find ourselves at the sculpture known as the Kneeling Ministers. This sculpture represents the awesome role that the clergy played in the American Civil Rights Movement. This monument was designed by the creator of the World War II monument in Washington, D.C. It is surrounded with columns. But if you look at these columns, you'll note that 4 of them are broken. And those pillars represent the broken, incomplete lives lived by Addie Mae Collins, Denise McNair, Cynthia Wesley, and Carol Roberson. And it's very powerful because you can stand right there in the middle of that monument. And if you face the northwest, you look directly at the 16th Street Baptist Church. The 16th Street Baptist Church spans the timeline of the city of Birmingham, Alabama. It's the first black church in Birmingham to be organized back in 1873. Birmingham is founded in December of 1871, to give you an idea of how close that is. But when you're considering that proximity, it's important to consider the proximity to 1865. These individuals, in less than a decade of being emancipated, were organizing their own church buildings and businesses, and they were thriving in the city of Birmingham. And as they moved to this location where they are now, and they complete this sanctuary, it becomes known as everybody's church. Reverend Dr. Pettiford is going to be this leading figure in Birmingham. He's going to, have medical facilities for people to come and get treatment that needed it. He's going to be the president of the first African-American bank in Birmingham, Alabama. So when you think of this idea that you didn't have to be connected to the church in membership, but in some way, in some form, if it was medical care, if it was economics through the Alabama Penny Savings Bank, or if it was education through the first 4-year high school for African Americans in the city, that church had a system of roots that spanned out through the entire African American community in Birmingham, Alabama.
The 16th Street Baptist Church, it meant a lot, because that's where we grew up at, going to this church. The different people there, most of the people that attended 16th Street Baptist Church, they were very elite. Our family wasn't elite. I think our family may been the poorest family there. But my mother carried us there so we can just grow up there, and one day we'll have the thing that they have.
The morning of September 15th, 1963 was a beautiful day weather-wise in the city of Birmingham.
Well, that day was going to be a youth day program. The young people would take over all the duties that the adults usually do. So we was excited because we was going to sing in the choir. And that particular day, we walked to church. And it was my sister Ada Mae, and Janie, and I. And we walked to church. We was having such a good time. Janie had a little purse shaped like a football. And we was running and catching it, and just laughing all the way to church that morning.
It was a very exciting time. So that energy was always there on a Sunday morning. And this Sunday morning was no different than any other Sunday morning, with the exception that the week before, the Birmingham City school system had finally been integrated.
So when we arrived, that's when we went down into the basement to freshen up.
When 10:22 a.m. rolls around, there's a telephone call in the pastor's study.
And while we was in the ladies' lounge, I was looking out the door. And while I was looking out the door, that's when I seen Denise McNair, Cynthia Wesley, and Carol Robson. Class had just turned out, and they came into the ladies' lounge.
And she picks that phone up, and she's told, "You have 3 minutes," in a very jarring voice.
And when they came into the ladies' lounge, they spoke to us. Denise was in front of her, in front of the other girl. And she stopped where Ada was. Ada was standing by the couch in front of the window. And she turned around and she said, "Ada, tie my sash." And when she reached her hand out the side, that's when the boom. That's when the bomb went off.
Force of that blast literally was felt over 3.5 miles away from the church itself. People throughout the city knew instantly when that bomb went off because of how powerful it was.
I remember it very well. We was in church, my mother, father, and me. And my church was on the south side. And that particular Sunday, I heard this loud explosion. It shook the city.
All I could do was say, I hollered, "Jesus," because I didn't know what it was. It was so loud. Oh, that sound was so loud. It went, people think it just said boom like that, but it went zoom. And it scared me so bad while that noise was going on. That's when it just shook me all up. Just shook my nerves and everything. That's a sound I will never forget. The debris from the glass window, all that debris just came rushing into my face. It was kind of stained glass. It was one of those kinds with that thick glass in it. And it just came rushing in. So then I began to call Addie. She didn't answer. So I heard somebody say, "Somebody bombed the 16th Street Church." And their voice was so clear, as though it was on the inside of the church with us. But right where the girls were standing, there was a big crater in the wall. I was kind of at least about 12 feet from them. They was all together, and I was still standing up. I know it was God because when I see how the bomb had messed the church up, I know it had to be him because I should have had fell out.
I think one of the most sobering things of September 15th, 1963 is that when the terrified parents went to Hillman Hospital to check to see if the child was alive, dead, injured, whatever, they were rudely, harshly told to go to the black entrance.
When I got there, the lady said I was going to have to lay on the cot because the eye doctor wasn't there. So while I laid there, that's when Johnny came in. And when she came in, I asked her, "Where's Addie?" And she said Addie had hurt her back, but she was going to come to visit me tomorrow. So I said, okay. So they operated on my eyes, and I went on upstairs in my room, and that's when my mother was there waiting. She told me that all the girls that was in the lounge with me was all killed, and I was the only survivor.
When you look at Sarah Collins, 12 years old, in one of the most heinous parts of the civil rights movement, I think that you don't appreciate the idea that although she didn't lose her life, she lost the comfort that comes with being a child. You can never get that back. She not only lost her sister, but she lost that wonder. She sacrificed that for the rest of us.
I had so many pieces of glass in my face and in my chest and ear. I know the doctor had told me he had took out about 26 pieces of glass from my face and eye. I remember when they had took the bandage off my eyes. I had the bandage on for about 2 or 3 days. The doctor took them off. He asked me, "What do you see out of your left eye?" I said, "I see a little light." And he took it off my right eye and asked the same question. And I said, "I can't see anything." I was blinded from the bomb. They released me from the hospital, but before they released me, I remember the doctor telling my mother that I would have to come back in February because they was going to have to remove my right eye. If they didn't remove it, I would go blind in my left eye.
Should nobody, no matter what the age you shouldn't have to endure no pain like that. And this is something, she got to live with the rest of her life.
I was in the hospital 28 days at night when everything just died down. That's when I would start seeing just flashes of light, just flashes of light coming into my eyes where I would just cry about the girls, my sister, and just wonder why. Why did this have to happen?
We're told that Dr. Martin Luther King was in Atlanta at Ebenezer Baptist Church, and someone came in and slipped him a note to tell him that he needed to leave the pulpit. And when he did, he took a phone call and they informed him of what had happened here in Birmingham at the 16th Street Baptist Church. And Dr. King walks back out to the sanctuary and steps into the pulpit, and he looks up into the ceiling and he asks God, "Is this why you brought me here?" And he began to weep uncontrollably. The response was to have a mass funeral. And so they gathered the families together, but Carol Roberson's family had already made plans to have her funeral at her home church. But the other 3 girls, Addie Mae and Cynthia and Carol, their funerals were held all together and Martin Luther King preached their funerals.
She came in, I asked her, where's Addie? And she said Addie had hurt her back, but she was going to come to visit me tomorrow. So I said, okay. So they operated on my eyes, and I went on upstairs to my room, and that's when my mother was there waiting. She told me that all the girls that was in the lounge with me was all killed, and I was the only survivor.
When you look at Sarah Collins, 12 years old, in one of the most heinous parts